I should tell you, I already have some sense of why you've come.
Why's that, Malika?
To say thank you.
Your senses are spot on. But on top of that, we also feel guilty.
Because the Pyro Gnosis has vanished? I sensed its loss.
Despite scouring through the remnants of Irminsul, we couldn't find any sign of the Pyro Gnosis. Not even any trace of it burning to ash.
That's certainly unusual. Still, the potential fallout from Irminsul's loss is significant, to say the least. Perhaps the Pyro Gnosis's disappearance is simply a knock-on effect of the impact it's had on a certain strand of fate. There's no need to feel guilty. We were clear that this time, there was to be no returning, only giving. Pure and simple.
Thank you really is a fascinating phrase. Please?
As we approach Snezhnaya, with every trailer and with every preview, the Gnosis are playing a very integral role, with the Tsaritsa aiming to collect them all and utilize it for her own personal goals. The Pyro Gnosis, however, is the only Gnosis that seems to have simply vanished. Not stolen, not handed over, it just vanished after being used to burn the Irminsul. Even in the most recent Snezhnaya web event, we see the Pyro Gnosis simply burn away. But what if it's because it's beyond the realms of Teyvat's perception, or even crazier, within somebody whose very being is beyond the laws of Teyvat? So today in this video, I want to go over primarily two theories that I believe are very likely to have happened, and I want to explain why I believe that to be the case. Now, of course, these are just theories and speculation, and the possibility it might actually happen is less than 10%. But you never know. With the way Hoyo moves and does their stories, we can see some elements of this being utilized in the Archon quests coming up. And if you want to see more theory videos like this, or lore breakdowns, discussions, gameplay, and more for Genshin Impact, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out in the algorithm and gets you guys to see my content more easily. Also, I'd love to see what you guys have to say about the Pyro Gnosis and its whereabouts in the comment section down below. I bet you guys have some crazy stuff, so I'm curious to see what y'all have to say. Now, to start off with what I believe is a likelier theory, and one that does make a bit more sense to myself, is that one of the shades has the Pyro Gnosis. Now, as we know, Mawika sensed that the Pyro Gnosis was no longer on Teyvat, and that they could no longer identify it where it was. It just simply disappeared. Now, to me, that says that either the Gnosis has been just completely burnt up, to which I would say that, well, there would still be some remnants of the power, I'd imagine, that Mawika would sense, having had the Gnosis for so long, right? Or somebody outside of Teyvat has come, yoinked it, and gone out of Teyvat immediately, to which again I would say we would have probably seen something like that happen. That would be a crazy event to have happened while they were obviously escaping the Irminsul burning. I would be very shocked if somebody like Skirk, for example, came and yoinked the Pyro Gnosis. No. For me, I think the bigger example of this situation, and the bigger reason for the situation, is that it has been completely removed from Teyvat's perceived reality. Now, the only beings who are able to do something like this would be the likes of the Heavenly Principles and the Shades. For the Shades to grab it, especially as they are well aware of the Tsaritsa's movement against them, as we had seen in the God's Limit teaser, it would be a masterstroke in halting the progress of the Tsaritsa and allowing them to have the upper hand by having the one thing she, as it currently seems, wants more than anything. They were obviously there accepting Nahida's decision to burn the Irminsul, so clearly at least one of them could have used the opportunity to interfere in some way, shape, or form and take the Gnosis. Now, out of the three shades that obviously were present at the time and actively are present when it comes to anything to do with the Heavenly Principles, I believe that Rhine-Daughter is the leading candidate to be the one with the Pyro Gnosis. As we have seen in the Transcendence trailer, Rhine-Daughter and the Tsaritsa are having a discussion regarding the game that the Tsaritsa is playing, and there is something clearly deeper happening there. We know the Shades aren't really on similar terms and are varying in their beliefs and degrees of support towards the Heavenly Principles, with the likes of Renova still having the most faith, right? right? And the likes of Asmodee already having seemingly switched sides. With Rhine-Daughter, as we know based on her history as a member of the Hexen Circle, being a sinner, that she is a very selfish individual and really only cares about her experimentations and plans. So for me, I believe this would be a perfect opportunity for her to utilize this as a way to get into the Tsaritsa's favor, especially now that we also know that technically the Tsaritsa is a very distant ancestor to her. I believe the reason as to why she'd want to come into favor of the Tsaritsa is a very straightforward one, and it links into Rhine-Daughter's inherent nature. As Kirk once said, Rhine-Daughter is pursuing some form of perfection, and we see that in her behavior, right from her experiments to becoming a sinner, from being a member of the Hexen Circle to being one of the shades of the Heavenly Principles. She's been a part of every major equation that there is on Teyvat and powerful factions. So what's well, there is that one thing that goes above Teyvat's laws and can influence its fate. What if Rhine-Daughter is looking to see how she can break herself out by becoming something akin to a descender, thanks to the collection of Gnosis that the Tsaritsa has? Now, we have no evidence of one becoming a descender, but with the use of the 7 Gnosis, all parts of the 3rd descender, and with how much of a scientist and researcher Rhine-Daughter is, she could easily utilize those pieces to potentially work towards becoming something close to a descender herself. It's a bit of an out there theory, but with her pursuing perfection, this would actually, add up a lot. It would make a lot of sense. Furthermore, if she is accepting and acknowledging of the fact that she can't become a descender herself, but learning about the authority and perhaps the structure of a descender could help her understand what makes a descender versus someone who's not. We know the likes of the Traveler's Sibling and Skirk, these individuals who are not from Teyvat, they are still bound by Teyvat's laws, while the Traveler is not. So for Rhine-Daughter, this would be the perfect opportunity to figure it out more and utilize it for her own goals. To explain why I don't think it's the other shades, let's start off with the first shade in mind, Renova. I think a lot of you guys would probably say that Renova is the next best option in this situation, but I personally feel that she's too hard and fast stuck in the rules and laws set by the Heavenly Principles. Even though she's like super loyal and wants to obviously do anything to avoid anybody infiltrating or breaking away the Heavenly Principles' rules, I just don't see it working out because of that reason I said. We've seen her question Asmodee switching sides. We've seen her even discuss the whole, we have to all attend the meeting. This is something we've done since the HP made us shades, and even that, after all of that, when they were all discussing the fact that, Pyro was staring at Renova and, the Tsaritsa is thinking of a plan, she even said that, well, I don't think we should get involved we should only get involved as much as the rules allow us. I mean, like, come on. So for me personally, I just don't see her getting involved so drastically by taking the Pyro Gnosis, even if it means that it would interfere in the Tsaritsa's plans because of those rules. And she would rather wait until she was directly approached. Similar-ish to what happened in Natlan, right? Similar-ish to what happened in Natlan. I feel like in Natlan, a lot of stuff had to happen for her to then get involved, right? It was a very last thing that she actively participated in when it came to the story. And even then, we saw her only in a very godly state, right? With the eye in the sky and everything. We didn't even see her physical model. So for me, I just don't see it happening just yet. And I don't see it being the case that she took the Pyro Gnosis, to be honest. Now we move on to the next one, which is Istaroth. Istaroth is somebody who I think a lot of us believe is going to be the next one to potentially defect, right? With her level of disdain that she has for the Heavenly Principle, something that we've actively seen over the last couple of years, and especially recently we saw it a little bit in the Three Moon Sisters cutscenes that we saw after the events of Moongazing, right? We saw that the Three Moon Sisters discussed Istaroth and how she also wasn't really appreciative of what the Heavenly Principles was doing. However, at the same time, she has been taking a little bit more of a laid-back approach. Somebody who's been become a bit more of an observer than anything else. She doesn't seem to want to actively participate just yet, right? And even in the God's Limit teaser, we saw her mentioning it a little bit when Daughter created the space and Renova asked Istaroth as to why she gave time to the space. She just said that I have to pass time in some way, shape, or form. And so for me, what that tells me a little bit is that Istaroth is basically passing the time and letting things play out until she needs to get involved, which I think will be maybe not this year with Snezhnaya, but I think next year for sure. I expect that to be the case. Now that leaves us with, of course, a shade that wasn't even there during the events of the Irminsul burning, and that is, of course, Asmodee. But I do think, even though she wasn't there, right? Even though she wasn't there, I do think there is a small chance that she could have snatched away the Pyro Gnosis and whisked it away, especially as she is the shade of space. I feel that out of the 4 after Daughter, I should say, so out of the 3 after Daughter, Asmodee is the next best option if it comes to the point where one of the shades has it and it's not Daughter. I think Asmodee wanting the Pyro Gnosis, obviously being able to take it into a space away from the perceived reality of Teyvat, would make a lot of sense. Also, that would bring in the faction that is the Abyss, right? This is something that I've noticed quite heavily over the last 6 years, that every region we go to, right, has featured the 3 big factions in some way. And what I mean by that, they featured the Fatui, Celestia, and the Abyss. And so far for Snezhnaya, we only know of the Fatui and Celestia's presence in the story. So having the likes of Asmodee come into the foray with the Pyro Gnosis and bring this Abyss sibling as well would not be entirely surprising, especially as we're approaching the culmination of the story. Now, my next theory is one that I think is a little bit crazier, and even I have some doubts on its likelihood, but I can still see it happening nonetheless due to a few details, and that is the Traveler has absorbed the powers of the Gnosis. The Gnosis is no longer present in its natural form, but more so that the Traveler has taken the power and made it their own. Now, obviously, we have no physical evidence of the Traveler becoming stronger since the Irminsul burned down, with no buffs to his Pyro Kit or anything of that sort, right? But with the powers, he could have gotten it in a very subconscious way. It could have been a very subconscious event, and we haven't seen the Traveler even use his Pyro powers yet. Even in the Snezhnaya trailer, all we saw was Electro and Anemo. What if they are hiding the Pyro powers for a special scene in the fight against Renova to show the upscale he's going to get? Remember what Mawika said. As far as I'm concerned, a Gnosis is basically an elemental energy enhancer. So clearly, if and when the Traveler uses Pyro, we will see a decent boost to his abilities in that situation. Now, let me explain how this would have happened and why it happened. So while we don't see any evidence of it physically happening during the cutscene, all we know is that the Pyro Gnosis simply disappeared, and the efforts to look for it led to no avail. I believe that in the process of the Gnosis being utilized and as they were escaping the Irminsul, the Gnosis may have been destroyed, wherein the casing, and as seen in the Snezhnaya web event, was burnt away. What I mean by that, to explain it in more simple terms, the casing may have been burnt away, but the power itself may have been transferred and housed somewhere else. I will add that, to be fair, we don't really know still whether or not the chess piece itself is simply a casing or not, but in this situation and for this theory, let us assume that the chess piece is a casing and that the power within is something completely different. We know that the Traveler could house the Gnosis when it was in its casing, and with the World Quest events involving the Little One, obviously the Ancient Name, being able to indwell Saurians, the Traveler seems to be far more connected to the Pyro Nation's abilities, and obviously the ability to use Phlogiston, something that shouldn't be possible for non-Natlanese people. These factors and all indicate that it wouldn't be too surprising if the remnants and the power within the Gnosis would have looked to find a new home within the Traveler thanks to the near equivalent fit. Throughout Natlan, it was also made a lot more obvious that the Traveler just wasn't some regular individual, right? Especially in Natlan, this was the case. I felt that they were more of an anomaly, especially as they were more up front and center. They were using more of their powers, such as purifying the abyssal energy, and it is becoming a more common occurrence that Hoyo loves to remind people of how unique and improbable the Traveler's powers can be. Obviously, this raises even more questions that you guys might have, in that how does it work when the Gnosis contains the remains of the third descender? Surely there should have been an immediate power-up, right? Well, to be fair on the latter, we really haven't seen the Traveler come into full action post the events of the Irminsul burning outside of going to the moon, where we didn't really have much hand-to-hand action there. And in regards to the third descender, what if the power imbued in those remains, the possible ability to change fate, could intersect and be compatible with someone who is also a descender? And now this is the reason why I believe that the Traveler having the Gnosis could be a very interesting plot point and a very interesting theory. This could extend further into the Tsaritsa's plans, as her end goal is obviously collecting all 7 Gnosis. What if her logic and reasoning behind the collection is that she is aware of the Traveler's status of being a descender, which we know she knows because the rest of the Fatui leadership are aware of it, and she wants to collect them all to power up the Traveler even further so that they can lead the rest of Teyvat to break away from fate and set on their new course, one that might burn away the old world and the laws while preparing the new one. Now, 2 very wild theories, one a little less likely and one I think that's more likely, but let me know down below in the comment section, what do you guys think? Which of these 2 theories are likely? And if there is another theory you guys have in regards to the Gnosis, do let me know, because quite frankly, Hoyoverse has spent 5 years building the importance of the Gnosis. I just don't believe that they'd write one out of the story off screen. It's not that easy, right? It can't be that easy. Something has happened to the Gnosis and we just don't know what yet, to be honest, right? So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and like I said, I am very curious to see how Hoyo are going to this going into Snezhnaya. It is going to be the centerpiece of where the Gnosis' knowledge, the Gnosis' information, the Gnosis' history is all going to come to the front. And of course, you know, we're going to be getting so many other storylines with the Tsaritsa, Khanreya, Renova, the Shades, and everything, right? It really is feeling like Snezhnaya is going to be the culmination of everything we've known and everything that we have been questioning for so long. And so I'm very, very excited. We're only 1 week away from the release of the region, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for us. But yes, let me know what you guys think, like I said, in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this theory video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Ciao. Bye-bye.